Hi everyone, welcome to today's session. Today again, we're still gonna go through a background knowledge on GRC. It's important for us to understand what GRC entails, right? First and foremost, we'll talk on the different principles. So today we'll also talk about accountability and also aspects that the GRC make it mandatory for organizations to abide to. And we can't just go, classifying information system, identifying critical systems without having a background knowledge as to what GRC entails, right? Especially for you, if you are in Europe or work for organization that adhere to the GRC standard or regulations, then it's important for us to really have this background knowledge. And I'm somebody that I believe in you being a master of whatever thing you are doing. You got to know it, right? So after this, we'll also go to ISMS, that's Information System Security Management. Uh, Information Security Management Systems, we'll talk on that in terms of the needs that we covered, and FISMA, we just talk on information system, right? So it's literally the same. And once we're done with this, we also covered, slides on ISMS, then we'll also go now through the different series and see the respective series like the ISO 2705 that we'll use to be able to classify the information types, right? And I can't just take people jumped to classifying of information type without us understanding this framework. Is important for us to understand the regulations. So we will just continue where we stop. And last class or last session, I did last session we went through the different 6 principles. So today we're just going to continue and take it from there. Okay. I'm recording my screen. Oh, which one am I recording? Okay. So, for example, as I said, we talk on the 6 principles. Today, we'll also talk about accountability and governance in GRC. What does accountability entails, right? So we all know what accountability is. It's just to make sure there's no unauthorized access to sensitive information. And here they are saying that data controllers, I think we spoke about data controllers already. They are also responsible for making sure that, organization complies with this principle, to make sure, again, data is being protected, and says that they must demonstrate compliance with the principle through appropriate measures. And you're doing that, accountability, of course, you have access control. You also have how many things, security measures that organization needs to put in place to ensure accountability. But some of the key measures of accountability include: first, they have to demonstrate appropriate technical and organization measures to ensure that data is being protected, which talk more about security controls and privacy controls, right? Produce and maintain relevant document that record data processing activities. Of course, you need to have those SOP that tells you as to what you are doing. They also need to appoint data protection officer, right, if it's necessary. And the name itself is speak for itself, data protection officer. And the 4 is to ensure that data protection by design and default is embedded in business processes that we're going to discuss sometime in the future. But talking about the accountability measures, they also need to ensure that, perform data protection impact assessment for activities that involve high risk data processing. Perform data protection impact assessment. What's the impact level if that particular security or vulnerability is being exposed? Like what we did, categorizing information system. And if you are new on this playlist, make sure you go to the next RMF playlist that we have. That's a good playlist too. As I said, we have 2 concurrent playlists going on, and I'll also be introducing other frameworks, right? And again, if you really want to make this your career path, it's important to have a good knowledge on all these core regulatory frameworks, okay? And then, when we talk of high impact, remember when we categorize an information systems, we also came based on the fact that based on the highest watermark for that system, it was a high system. And if it's a high system, what are we going to do? That's the impact level. So the impact level is high. And they will also need, perform data protection impact assessment. So you need to do that assessment to think of the impact level. What's the impact level if this system get breached? And the reason of them doing that is to be able to determine a set of controls, okay? controls that goes to your system. Comply with relevant codes of conduct and use recognized certification schemes. So again, that's just more of the accountability measures. Also, there's also a need for internal policy and procedures. As of now, we all know policies are written documents that tells you what an organization does. And for those of you following the RMF playlist that we have, you saw when we developed policy, we're able to develop all right implementation statements. So likewise, organization needs to have internal policies that tells them as to what they do, and also having to have the procedure. Procedure is just on step by step as to how your policy will be executed, right? And the objective is to safeguard personal data and reduce the likelihood of data breaches, which makes sense. So internal policy are really important. For example, we have an example of internal policy and procedure for GRC compliance. They said that a financial services company is working to ensure compliance with GDPR. They decide to create and implement internal policy and procedure focused on data protection. First, you got to develop your policies. The company draft an internal data protection policy that outlines how personal data should be collected, stored, and processed, ensuring that all actions align with GDPR requirements. This policy is reviewed annually and updated when needed. And this is something that you all, if you go back to that playlist, we show you guys how you can develop your policies. And then the next part is to be able to implement procedure. To support the policy, the company needs to set up clear procedures for handling data subject requests, such as the right to access or to erase personal information. Right, we are implementing, put a step as to how people can request access to their data, or how they can even ask you on like to erase or delete their data. Employees are trained on this procedure to ensure proper implementation. Then the next part has to do with protecting personal data. The company also installs encryption software and access controls to safeguard sensitive information. These are all controls measures, right? Because remember, we said that your policies are dependent on your security controls. You use your controls to be able to develop your security policy. So definitely, you putting that in place is to be able to, again, protect sensitive information, such as credit card details and customer addresses, right? These technical measures complement their internal policy, ensuring that data remains secure. The next one, minimizing data breaches. To minimize the risk of data breaches, the company conduct regular security audits. Do you see? And these are things that we do on a timely basis, like common, regularly, annually, I mean, like in intervals, you keep doing that. There are times you even do periodic, auditing, just to make sure that, if there's anything going on underlying issues, your organization, you all will be in a better place to discover, right? Provide continuous cybersecurity training. We already developed a policy on 80, and you guys saw that, right? And establish a response plan in case a data breach occurs, ensuring they can act swiftly to mitigate potential damages, right? Still, then let's look at the responsibility of the data controllers. First, company handles employees' data, of course, right? So if they handle employees' data, what are they going to do? The company ensure the implementation of security measures such as encryption, security, routinely document and data processing activities. So if you are a data controller, if you are that company, you collect information, then you need to make sure that people's information are protected. And how do you do that? By having internal policies, defining and telling us what your policy does, also performing routine tasks to see if there's any underlying issues, maintain proper documentation, even make sure your policies are up to date, right? And the company also needs to appoint a data protection officer that perform an impact and also make sure that data protection impact assessment are being performed to evaluate the risks before handling high risk data. You got to do this before. Do you see what we say? You go, you checked, data impact assessment. For example, when we did our PT and PIA, what did we do? We're able to see if that system collect a lot of sensitive data. If the system collect a lot of PII, then automatically that is a that is a PIA positive system. And if that's the case, then we need a PIA, right? Where you have to make sure, in as much as we have categorized the information system, we have select the baseline security controls, we also need to implement the privacy controls, and they need to do that before even handling high risk data. So you need to be able to perform this. That way you have a holistic view of the sensitivity or nature of data that you collect and house. And that will also help you identify the set of controls that goes to your system, right? And today we're going to talk now the 8 fundamental rights under GDPR. GDPR is so powerful. I told you guys already. And the previous one, we talk about the principles. So these videos, we're going to talk about the 8 rights. As I said initially, we want to have a good understanding as to what GRC is all about. Then take you guys through the different space, how to categorize information system, level information system, the user top of perform a data protection impact assessment. Those are the things that we will be checking. Okay. The GDPR grants 8 fundamental rights to neutral person. For example, individual whose personal data is processed. You are a neutral person. I'm a neutral person. These rights are designed to empower you, not the organization, and give them more control over their personal data. This is your data that these organizations are collecting. It doesn't matter what you're doing, but it's your information, and you need to have the right and power as to how your information will be used. Okay. So the first one, we have the right to be informed. The right to be informed ensures individuals are properly notified about the collection and use of their personal data. It's important. Remember, we even talked about consent, accuracy, and so many other things that we've discussed already. If not, make sure you watch the previous 2 videos before you can stump on this video, okay? So with this, remember, you have to be informed about how they're going to collect and use your information, and in trying to link this with what we covered based on FISMA and FEDRAM. It has to do with the PT and PIA. You remember, most of the section 1.5, you ask a question: how is this data collected? Why is it collected? I mean to say, how is it going to be used? How is it going to be retained, and all those things? So you need to be able to answer all these questions. Make sure you would have a defined policy as to what you will be doing before even thinking of handling, people's data. Okay. And that's why it says you have to inform them. This guarantees transparency in the data processing activities and helps individuals understand how their personal data is being utilized. Let me do this in reading mode. A typical example, let's say right to be informed in a data processing, right? A retail company collects personal data from a customer during online purchase, such as names, addresses, and payment information. The company is responsible for ensuring that customers are fully aware of how their data will be used. Providing information to customers, the company must clearly inform customers about how their data will be protected and processed. This is typically done through privacy notice. You get the point? Privacy notice or policy provided at a point of data collection, such as during the checkout process, right? You have the privacy notice, or at the point, the initial phase where that data is being collected, then they need to know, right? The example, the privacy notice may include detail about what personal data is collected, why is it being collected? For example, is it to process order? Is it to improve customer experience? What exactly is the purpose? You need to state it, and people will need to know, give their consent, have the right to be informed before they can allow you to collect their data, and how long it will be stored, right? And then they also need to ensure transparency. For example, to maintain transparency, the company regularly updates the privacy notice, especially when there are changes in the way customer data is used. For example, if the company starts sharing customer data with third parties for marketing purposes, they must inform customer of their change. You get the point? Remember, when they talk on, if there's a change of purpose, if it changed, then you need to have a second form of consent, right? But if it's still, maybe, yeah, it might change, but maybe the purpose hasn't changed, then there's no need. But in a situation where it has changed, you need to have a second request form, right? Helping customer understand data use. The company makes sure that privacy notice is clear and easy to understand. These are things that we've covered already. Make sure it is in their native language, a language that people can understand. And customer know exactly what happens with their data. This may involve providing a simple explanation of data processing activities and giving customer the option to buy in or of specific date uses such as receiving marketing emails. They give them that opportunity for them to decide if they want to buy it or buy out, but it's up to them. Okay. The right to be informed. Key question for data collection. Remember now, this is the right to be informed at the level of the organization, let's say UST. When personal data is collected, individual must be informed about. If we want to collect their information at the initial phase, or we are doing it through the privacy notice, why is their data collected in the first place? How long will their data be stored or retained? With whom will their data be shared? Remember, nowadays, organizations have to partner and use other third parties for their business to be functional and operational. So at the initial phase, when you are collecting people's data, you need to let them know when their data will be collected, how long will their data be stored, and with whom will their data be shared. So these are some of the things that organization will need